Vesuva copying our opponent's Copperline Gorge. Like I mentioned before, right before we started playing, is if our opponent is playing red lands, then we might be able to breach off of our opponent's land. Alright, so we breach here, put in the Titan. Hello and welcome everybody. We are here with something very unique, very special, and if you follow me on Twitter, and here is my Twitter @ if you don't, there's also a link on the channel page if you want to get there that way. You will have seen this particular screenshot demonstrating a kill using Primeval Titan, of course, Teetering Peaks, and Through the Breach, and that is what we're going to be covering today. And of course, I did not come up with this list on my own. In fact, it is a list from the user Grilled Cheese, who is a frequenter of the Amulet Discord. This is based off of their list in particular, but also the deck suggestion came from a user who follows me named Titan Valakut. Of course, there are some differences between this list and my list, so let's just go ahead and jump into the main deck here. And what the heck is actually going on here? Well, we are playing the 5-mana instant Through the Breach, which says you may put a creature card from your hand on the battlefield. That creature gains haste. Sacrifice that creature at the beginning of the next end step. And all the other stuff about Spice, that actually just doesn't matter at all, because this is just a 5-mana way to cheat in a creature with haste, and of course we are playing one Emrakul the Aeons Torn to go along with this, the greatest she creature in the universe, of course. 15 mana, 15/15, the spell can't be countered. When you cast it, take an extra turn. Flying, protection from spells that are 1 or more colors, Annihilator 6, making them sacrifice 6 permanents when it attacks, and to top it all off, when Emrakul is put into a graveyard from anywhere, its owner shuffles their graveyard into their library. So, of course, if you breach out an Emrakul, not only are you hitting your opponent for 15 in the air, but you're also making them sacrifice 6 permanents, getting a 6 for 2, basically. And in the late game, Emrakul can just be hard cast, give you an extra turn, and win the game against control opponents. We'll see if that ever comes up. And of course, we are playing one copy of Fierce Empath here, the 3-mana creature, a 1/1 that lets you search for a creature with a cost of 6 or greater and put it into your hand. That way, we can use our Summoner's Pact to find a Fierce Empath, pay 3 mana and cast it to search for an Emrakul and put the Emrakul in our hand. So let's say that we're doing this all in one turn for a Through the Breach and a Fierce Empath's mana cost, a total of 8 mana. We can get a hasty Emrakul into play, attacking and annihilating our opponent, and that's pretty cool. But of course, the point of playing Through the Breach is not just for Emrakul. In fact, Through the Breach does some very interesting things with Primeval Titan. There's a sequence where you can attack with a Primeval Titan for lethal with only a single amulet using Through the Breach. And that sequence is, of course, you get to 5 mana, cast Breach. Titan will come into play already with haste, thanks to the Breach itself. So Titan can search up a Boros Garrison for red and white and Teetering Peaks. This is the reason for its inclusion in the deck. It enters the battlefield tapped. When it enters the battlefield, target creature gets +2/+0 until end of turn. So, of course, by this point, you'll have Boros Garrison and Teetering Peaks in play, and your Titan will be an 8/6. And then you attack with your Primeval Titan and search for a Sunhome, of course, to give a double strike, and a Vesuva copying Teetering Peaks, and that'll put your Titan into an 8/6 double striker. Of course, all these things are being untapped with Amulet, hence the one Amulet that has to be in play. So, long story short, you can breach out a Titan and kill your opponent with the Titan, even with just a single Amulet in play. So, not only can we breach out a potential Emrakul the Aeons Torn, but we also can breach out a Titan and just win on the spot. And of course, this can be done at instant speed, so say you want to play around counter magic of some sort, you can cast a Through the Breach on your opponent's end step, and if they don't counter it, then you get a Titan into play and get to search for some lands. And if they do counter it, you can untap and just slam the Titan for turn. So, it'll give you a little bit of counterplay in the control matchups. My personal experience is that this list is extremely adept at beating very fast combo-y matchups, or decks that aren't really trying to stop you from doing what you're doing. Like, for example, against Prowess, if you could breach out a Titan, I would imagine that would be quite good. Those are the types of matchups where Breach will shine. And when your opponent's doing something a little more interactive, Breach is much more of a question mark. For example, if your opponent is casting Thoughtseize and taking away your Primeval Titans, then you might be left with dead Through the Breaches that do nothing, unless you're able to top deck another Titan or a Pact or something along those lines. And, of course, if you're playing against counter magic, you do have to worry about your Breach getting countered or your Titan getting countered, and it's pretty much very similar there. And, of course, because our matchup against Thoughtseize mid-range decks is quite particularly bad, or any deck playing Thoughtseize really, we have a transformational sideboard package here where we can cut the breaches, we can cut the Emrakul, and we can cut the Fierce Empath and bring in 3 trackers. We can bring in 3 trackers, of course, in order to have a intermediary threat, a way to draw some cards and get out from underneath, discard from our opponent, and then whatever other interaction we have going on here. So, of course, if you need to, you can side out the breach package and be okay. But regardless, this deck is extremely fun. If you've ever breached out an Emrakul in your Amulet deck, your opponent is never going to expect it, and you're probably just going to win on the spot. Any of the changes you see are geared towards helping us against the control matchup, for example, the Pact of Negation, or helping us against these Thoughtseize mid-range decks, bring in some extra tireless trackers, of course. And the third explosive is just to help combat some of these very low-to-the-ground aggro decks. Don't know if it's necessary, but we have the explosives here, and I've been quite a fan of the card. We cut some things like Endurance from the board because it's 40 ticks for a card that I don't know if it is super impactful. We also cut a Relic of Progenitus from the original list because I found that if you're getting an Amulet into play with Saga, you're probably just going to win immediately, and searching for a Relic, probably not going to be the most impactful, quite slow. And, yeah, I don't really have a whole lot else to say. We have our land bullets in the sideboard here, of course. Yeah. Let's just jump straight into match 1 here. One thing I want to say while we're waiting is I have only played a grand total of 2 leagues with this deck. Both leagues went 3-2 for me, so not too bad, but I am by no means an expert at this strategy. I can't even say that I know how to play it correctly, to be honest, so keep that in mind. Keep my plays with a grain of salt. There's definitely possibly better plays to be had from me, and I will not always be finding the right lines. In fact, in playing through my leagues, I found after the fact that there were several spots where I could have done something like played a 3-drop, packed it for a Grazer, gone up to exactly enough mana to through the breach a Titan into play, but I'm not used to thinking about those lines, and I completely missed it. So if that kind of thing happens in the upcoming matches, then go ahead and flame me in the comments for it, or at least let me know what lines I missed. But of course, I'm here just to give the deck a test run and show you guys something cool that's happening in Amulet at the moment. And yeah, alrighty, let's hop in here for the match. Of course, we'll be on the play here. And we have a very interesting hand. Vesuva entering tapped, looking like it will most likely end up being an upside here. We get to play turn 1 Saga Amulet, turn 2 explore out a second Saga, turn 3 have 3, 4, 5 mana. If we can draw and enter the battlefield tapped a red source and a breach, we could even breach out a Titan on double Amulet. If we draw a bounce land, this hand's quite good. I think this is definitely a keep. It's definitely an interesting hand, in my opinion. We might even be able to Vesuva an opponent's land if they're playing red and try to through the breach that way. Of course, we can just do the normal Titan thing and win without through the breach if we so desire that. So that is one of the upsides of playing decks like this, by the way, is just because you're doing something cool and unique does not necessarily mean that you have to win that way. In fact, oftentimes you can just do the Titan thing and win the normal way, in addition to whatever it is that you're doing that's fun and cool. So our opponent cycles a Street Wraith. Is this going to be a Asmor deck? Yep. So our opponent plays Asmorano Mardekadaistin Kuldakar. Asmorano Mardekadaistin Kuldakar. That's what it is. I told you I'd learn how to pronounce it one day. And that could be a problem if our opponent just has all the foods that they need here. I guess Asmor doesn't really do anything against Emrakul the Aeons Torn. Hey, there's our Through the Breach, too. And we can actually Vesuva our opponent's Copperline Gorge, so if they're not expecting this, then we can just Breach kill them next turn. Let's say they attack with the Asmor, play a cookbook, make a food, and like, play a land and do something irrelevant and pass, then we might actually just have straight-up lethal here, which is quite cool. I guess we can't Vesuva copying the Teetering Peaks? Goblin Lure. Okay, so they're playing the Hollow One version. Interesting. And they pitched their cookbook that they searched up with Asmor. Very interesting. I mean, we're very happy that they don't have cookbook to play, and like if they just attack with Asmor and pass, they have the Hollow One. Interesting. So, breaching out the Titan breaching out the Titan would allow us to attack for 16, and they could block with the Hollow one. Alright, we'll go ahead and draw for turn here. Talaria West. Well, these are the kinds of lines that I'm sure I'll mess up. We get double Amulet, we can breach Titan into play, get Bounce Land, and Valakut, transmute Talaria West, play Dryad, leaving 3 lands in play, play Vesuva, copying Valakut, go to combat attack. I think we have lethal here. I think. Alright, so let's see, this is the one that went up to 2, so we can let this resolve. What is going on here? Do we have to stack these? Oh, there we go. Okay. So let's go ahead and float a mana here. Yeah, I'm pretty sure we can get Dryad into play and then attack with our Titan. Because, of course, with Through the Breach, since it grants haste to the Titan, we don't actually need to get a Slayer Stronghold here to attack. So we'll get our second Amulet. 5 to make sure we have no yields. Vesuva copying our opponent's Copperline Gorge. Like I mentioned before, right before we started playing, is if our opponent is playing red lands, then we might be able to breach off of our opponent's land. Alright, so we breach here. Put in the Titan. Already has haste. We hit yes. We search for Valakut and Simic Growth Chamber. And our opponent concedes. Okay, well, I guess they didn't want to see the rest of this. We didn't even necessarily have to transmute. Now I'm thinking about it. We could have pacted for a Dryad and just cast it that way. So, yeah, we definitely had lethal there. Just had to get there eventually. There's probably a better line than that, but clearly that was good enough. Alright, so against our Asmor Cookbook Hollow One deck, we probably want the Forces and the Foundation Breaker. I don't mind Tireless Tracker. They play Copperline Gorge, which makes me think they're likely not playing black, so maybe we don't need to worry about, like, discard spells here. I'm not sure that Breach is particularly good in this matchup. Like, it was very good right there, obviously, but... And I guess it lets us play around Blood Moon a bit by putting a Titan into play with Through the Breach instead of just casting it, so I think maybe Breach is still good. Not sure about Emrakul. Pithing Needle is good to name Asmor, so they can't, you know, bolt away our Dryads and Titans, you know, just make them do 6 to themselves. Bog is probably irrelevant. Dismember hitting Asmor and Hollow One are both relevant, so we want those. Explosives is debatable. They probably have Ragavan. And they also have the 1-drops that get buffed when they discard cards, so actually we probably do want all the explosives. There's a lot of cards to bring in, and that's the other thing about this list that's kind of difficult, is it's hard to sideboard cards out. We can sideboard out Pax in case our opponent has Blood Moon to punish us. We can sideboard out the Cavern, as it's irrelevant. We can sideboard out Explorers because they're kind of slow. I mean, I guess they're good against discard spells if our opponent has them, but until I see that, I'm not going to worry about it. I think Breach is probably good here. Razor's good. Maybe we don't want this many explosives. I kind of doubt it, though. I don't know that we need Fierce Empath to set up Emrakul, as breaching out a Titan is clearly quite good. I don't know. I kind of want to give it a shot, though. Guess we can trim 1 Breach, 1 Explosives. So, we want to actually trim Sagas in this matchup to play around Blood Moon. So we'll trim a couple of Sagas and keep the Breach instead. We might even want to just go completely off of Saga so that we don't get blown out by Blood Moon, as it would stop us from getting to Breach mana anyways. I kind of don't mind that. So let's keep the Cavern and maybe an Explorer. We could also have the Ghost Quarter, as it does get us a basic land, but I don't know. I'm going to take the Explorer. If our opponent Blood Moons us, then we can just breach out an Emrakul and make them sacrifice their whole board state, including the Blood Moon. That would be pretty cool. Right, we have Explosives to interact. We have Amulet. The other thing about Explosives is that playing it on 0 kills Asmor as well, which is quite relevant. Turn 1 Amulet, turn 2 land, turn 3. This is a turn 4 Breach kind of hand. I don't know, it's kind of slow. I kind of feel like we can mulligan and do better than this, but the Explosives is very good against Asmor. I guess if they're likely to just cast the 1 mana card that makes us both draw 3 cards and discard 3 cards at random, so our opening hand might not actually matter, but given that we might be able to go turn 1 Amulet, I think I'm willing to keep this, and the Explosives lets us answer Asmor, so it's definitely debatable, but I'm going to give it a shot. There's Burning Inquiry. What did I say? What did I say? Our opponent got rid of our Foundation Breaker, Castle Garenbrig, and T-West. You know, it's whatever. All right. Gruul Turf. All right, well, let's just lead on Amulet off of our basic forest before our basic forest just disappears and we can't play around Blood Moon at all. To be honest, it might even be right to play Boros Garrison, pick up the forest, and play Explosives on 3 here just to play around Blood Moon. I don't think that's the worst possible thing in the world. Our opponent has Ox of Agonist as well. That's kind of unfortunate for us. They can't get it back this turn, though, but Ancient Grudge of the Amulet. Okay. Dryad. Well, I guess we're playing Castle Garenbrig and passing? Sure. Haven't seen an Asmor from our opponent just yet. Next turn we can play Vestige, Dryad, Bounce Land, pick up the Vestige. And if we top deck exactly a threat plus a breach, then we can do that this turn 4. That would require us to hit, like, Summoner's Pact, Titan, or Emrakul. Or I guess maybe the 3-drop might do it also. No, that doesn't do it. Fierce Empath would not, because we can't cast both. So yeah, it would have to be exactly Summoner's Pact, Titan, or Emrakul off the top, followed by Breach, or in reverse order. Probably not super likely, but they discard Asmor and Blood Moon. That's very good for us. I guess they were hoping that they would be able to play this Asmor. Well, I mean, at least I feel vindicated for expecting Blood Moon from our opponent, because there it is. Inquiry, okay. Yeah, hitting our Dryad and Explosives was kind of brutal there, but, you know, that's okay. Let's see if they have any... No hollow ones, okay, we'll untap. Second Amulet, huh? Well, I mean, I guess we're just playing both of these out. And I guess the Sun Home? Sure, we'll pass. We still need to find a threat, which we have not even drawn or discarded, so pretty high likelihood of hitting, like, something good off the top. Hopefully we don't just top deck Emrakul. That would be kind of awkward. Blood Moon, okay. Valakut, okay. We'll play that and pass. I mean, we could still breach something out in this game, or just naturally draw a second forest. Or draw Dryad into Titan. Those are all reasonable things to expect. Or draw a Force of Vigor and a green card, and then a threat. That's a lot of cards, but it's possible. Now here comes Ox, probably, to end the game. That's what it feels like. Yep. Discard your hand, then draw 3 cards. Alright. Vengevine, interesting. I guess I should have expected that, but... And a Blazing Root Walla that they can madness back. This, of course, is the one... What is it? 1 mana 1/1 that they can pay 3 and give plus... No, pay 1 and... What does this thing do? Pay 1 and give +2/+0 until end of turn. That's what it is. I mean, ain't bad. Well, we need to win now. I don't know how that's going to happen, but, like, we need to top deck exactly threat plus breach. And it probably, at this point, just has to be Emrakul. If we top deck the... Okay, well, we're not top decking anything. I think we can safely scoop this up, so let's go to the next one. We just chalked that up to, that's just what happened. So they do definitely play Blood Moon. I think we want Engineered Explosives even more so, since it kills Asmor as well. Although, to be honest, I think that Asmor is not as problematic in their deck as in a dedicated food deck, but feeling like a genius for boarding out all these sagas as well. I don't think they would be good here. Do we want trackers? I don't think it's the craziest thing in the world, since we can play it with a single basic forest underneath a Blood Moon and use it to draw some extra cards. I don't know, it's not, like, the best, though. I think we don't necessarily need Grazers. So we could bring in a Tracker and an Explorer, perhaps. Explorer seems like it could be alright to help us try to churn through... Actually, that would put us at 61 cards. I think Breach Emrakul is still probably good here. The Fierce Empath is kind of meh, but... And Pith and Needle naming Asmor doesn't seem as relevant now that I see that they're not very all-in on the food plan, so I think we just bring in the second tracker to help us play around Blood Moon a little bit more, and do this. I don't think Ghost Quartering ourselves to get a basic is going to be the best plan, so I'm just leaving the Ghost Quarter in the board. We'll be on the play, of course. We have a Breach. We get, we're very close to our turn to explore, but not quite. Our hand does not play around any kind of Blood Moon effect. I think we have to mulligan this. Well, I mean, we have Force of Vigor for Blood Moon. We have a Breach as well, just in case. If we top deck any untapped source, we can play Dryad. Dismember for Asmor. What are we bottoming? Probably the Dismember, but that feels kind of bad. Maybe we're bottoming the Breach here, since we can force to kill a Blood Moon. I mean, yeah, I think we're supposed to keep this. It's very slow, but if we bottom Dismember and our opponent has Asmor and Cookbook, then we kind of just get owned. We could bottom the Breach or the Force. I think we bottom the Breach, especially since we could draw a redundant Breach and it would do nothing, so I think we lead on. It doesn't really matter, to be honest. I think we lead on the Valakut so we can draw an untapped source and then have Castle entering untapped. It doesn't really matter, though. I guess, no, I can't think of a reason why it would matter whether we lead on Garenbrig or Valakut. If you can think of one, leave it in the comments below. This also gets us a red source in play so we can breach eventually if we just run out of things to actually do. Opponent has double Street Wraith and turn 1 Hollow One. Well, Dismember works against that also. I mean, I guess we're just doing it. I have no fear of Asmor at this point. So, should I? Maybe. We need this untapped source for Dryad. Now we can force pitching a Primeval Titan and still have a Titan backup, so we need to draw a couple of lands here. Untapped source into bounce land off the top would be like the golden standard, I suppose. Another Hollow One. Yikes. 2 Hollow Ones. Well, we can force that. We can force them. There's an untapped source. I mean, I guess we're passing. We'll probably force pitching Primeval Titan to hit both of these Hollow Ones, or maybe a Blood Moon and a Hollow One if our opponent has it. Force looking very good here. I wasn't planning on Force hitting a Hollow One, but, I mean, it's a thing that can happen. Burning Inquiry. I think we probably need to force this now. We're definitely not facing down a Blood Moon. And I think we're going to lose to these Hollow Ones if we don't, so yeah, we'll just pitch the Titan here. Kind of sad to do so, and it means that we're more likely to discard relevant cards from our hand, but not much we can really do about it, so of course we have to force here in response because there's definitely a possibility that we discard the Force to the Burning Inquiry, so Through the Breach and Dryad is very interesting. Do they Inquiry a second time and we still have the same 2 cards? Okay. Alright, bounce land off the top, and then threat to breach in. That's what we're looking for. My opponent has a Blazing Root Walla. I'm scared. I mean, Crumbling Vestige ain't too bad. Here's a Dryad. Are we supposed to play out the Vestige? I guess we do, because if we draw a bounce land, we can then... No, drawing bounce land doesn't do anything for us. I think we're supposed to not play out the Vestige. Just something in my intuition is telling me not to. I mean, we can always just play Vestige and something else this upcoming turn. I guess Vestige is also a green source. It's like if our opponent had Inquired and then made us discard Breach and given us Vestige and Titan, and we untapped and drew a untapped source, then, you know. I guess we're Vesuva copying the Valakut. It's interesting to note that if we had... I'm not attacking. If we had a Titan instead of a Breach, we could have played Vesuva, chosen not to copy anything, and floated a green with it thanks to the Dryad ability, and activated Garenbrig and casted the Titan, but we don't have that, so we'll just see what happens. Probably not blocking the Flame Blade. I don't really care to lose my Dryad for no reason. Right? Amulet. Not really helping a whole lot here, but, you know, I think we play the Amulet, but keep the Crumbling Vestige in hand, so that if our Dryad dies, we can still cast Titan by floating a green. If we draw a Titan, of course, so. Not attacking with the Dryad, not blocking with the Dryad. No reason to expose it to a bolt effect of some sort, which our opponent could have. Don't know if they would, but they could. Ancient Grudge, okay, that doesn't really bother me. We still want to draw a Titan off the top. I think if we draw a Titan, that'll basically just be lethal, because we'll get second Valakut and Bounce Land, and that'll be 2 lands times 3 Valakuts is 6 triggers, it's just 18 damage already, and then we can just pick up the Bounce Land and play another, so nope. Well, we definitely want to play the Forest, and I think now we just want to play the Crumbling and shoot these 2 creatures down so we don't just die to them. And this also lets us start attacking, which is quite interesting. Always yes. Always yes, always yield. We can get 4 damage through with our Dryad here also. We could have done that even without the Crumbling Vestige, as Dryad is giving our lands the ability to tap for all colors of mana. This Through the Breach really looking like it would have been better if we had another threat. But, I mean, if we draw an Emrakul, then the Through the Breach will be a huge payoff. Blood Moon. Okay, now Through the Breach might be super clutch if we draw a thing. We don't. I'm just going to hold on to the Heath as an extra thing to pitch if our opponent casts another Inquiry, I suppose. Definitely looking good that we went ahead and killed their board state also. What a strange... Hey, our Tracker! That is awesome. Remember when I brought in Tracker specifically to play around potential Blood Moon shenanigans? We might just have lethal thanks to the Tracker tech. I'm going to go ahead and draw a card with the clue now, so if we hit a land, we can play it and get another clue, because Value Train... Hey, look at that. Alright, I'm not going to crack this clue, though. We probably want to hold it to instep. Actually, I guess if our opponent casts an Inquiry, we're probably supposed to clue in response, so we have a higher likelihood of keeping a Titan, since we get to keep 2 cards instead of 1. Oh, we win the match. Well, I mean, I guess I'm glad I brought in Tracker. That was extremely unexpected. I don't even recall if I think we breached our opponent in game 1 for lethal, right? Yeah, that's right. So we did the breach thing, but not the breach Emrakul thing. So that's something we'll have to save for a later match. But yeah, like I said, this deck is super fun, and I don't really have much else to say. Let me know what you think about it if you've played this list before, and if you haven't, why don't you give it a shot? It's not too hard to get an Emrakul and a couple breaches online, at least. I know in paper it's a little more pricey, but regardless, I hope you guys enjoyed this one. I'll see you guys for match 2. This is Redface Menace, signing off.